Hey guys, we're here with the members of the Sky Pillars. We're here with Furat and Shannon. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
Hey.
Alright, so we're here with them. We're going to go over their draft. They had the first overall pick, and first overall they decided to take Togekiss. They followed that up with Rillaboom, the G-Max version, then Milotic, Chandelure, Riolu, Golurk, Boltund, Mawile, Rhyhorn, and Milcery. Now, we gave you a B on the synergy. One of the main reasons is we really like your Fire, Water, Grass core combined with the Togekiss. We thought that was very strong. You have the G-Max Rillaboom, arguably the best grass type in the format right now, with that ability to have a priority stab move boosted by grassy terrain. You can G-Max it and get that base 160 attack, stab attack, also boosted by grassy terrain. That also goes through abilities. It's just absolutely a monster. You have Milotic next to it to kind of stop the Intimidates from coming in and kind of barring those away. The Chandelure is a great fire type. It hits really hard. Has the ability to set up Trick Room if you need to, even imprison Trick Room if you need to. Good stab attacks with both Shadow Ball and Heat Wave or Overheat. And then to top all that off with those three, you have Togekiss next to it. An amazing, probably the best redirector next to Indeedee. Definitely has a lot more versatility than the Indeedee does. Well, able to go both defensive and the Follow Me set with stuff like Helping Hand and Yawn, and then being able to go offensive with Crit Kiss and being able to just boost the speed of the Pokemon next to it by getting Dynamax, being able to crit stuff and setting up Misty Terrain so that way you're not getting affected by statuses and things like that. And it has amazing coverage. I think it gets Grass Knot, it gets Flamethrower. It has a lot of things that can handle stuff if it needs to go offensive. So those were some really highlights of the draft that you had. But we gave you a B because it seemed to fall off a little bit after around the 6th or 7th round. You have Boltund, which is kind of, it's okay, but it's not great. And then the three picks after that, Mawile, Rhyhorn, and Milcery, they just seemed like they were tacked on at the end. You needed to fill spots out in the draft, which can happen when you decide to go 2 S's and 2 A's in the first 4 rounds. You end up having to kind of budget things out more. So overall, with the synergy, while we liked the top 4 picks with the Fire, Water, Grass core next to the Togekiss, we thought that it wasn't truly deep enough to warrant a higher grade than a B.
After that, we gave you a B- on your threat level. You do have some significant threats here. I think the most, the biggest one being that Togekiss, because it is such a versatile Pokemon. Great first pick. It can be threatening in a few different ways. You can run it offensive with something like Weakness Policy, or you can go with the Crit Togekiss set. And it can also be a very bulky support Pokemon with moves like Tailwind and Helping Hand and Yawn, stuff like that. So considering you never really know which Togekiss you're going up against, it can be threatening because it does all of its jobs pretty well. G-Max Rillaboom is also one of your bigger threats. If you happen to max it and you get that G-Max drum solo off in with that 160 base power in grassy terrain, that's such a huge amount of damage. It's just that sometimes your damage output is going to be mitigated by opponents who might have other terrain setting Pokemon. Opposing Dynamax might override your terrain as well. Rillaboom isn't the fastest Pokemon. If you can get it in under Tailwind, that'll be even better. But if there's something that outspeeds it and goes for a max Mindstorm or something like that, it's going to affect your damage output. It can get intimidated as well, which will also affect your damage output. So it can be threatening if it's allowed to do what it wants to do unhindered. And even if you don't max it, of course, the Grassy Glide is obviously a big threat as well. My only concern is that its damage output is a little bit limited when you're not using grass moves, just because it doesn't have a secondary stab, and even if you're getting super effective hits with something like a high horsepower you might not always be able to score those one-hit KOs that you might need. Milotic is a big threat as well. It does get competitive. It's pretty dangerous if you can let it get the boost up. Me as somebody who's played with a lot of coil hypnosis Milotic, if you are able to get those boosts up, that can just win you games by itself. It's really dangerous. But on the other hand, sometimes Milotic, it can sort of be a sitting duck if it doesn't have anything to do. You know, if you don't have that hypnosis set on it, you can't just sit there and fire off sleep moves. If you're just running something like Scald, Icy Wind, and your opponent plays around the Milotic well, and it's not getting competitive boosts, then it can just kind of be a sitting duck, and it's not really doing anything. Additionally, even if you have that coil hypnosis set, if your opponent is setting up Misty or Electric Terrain, which they might be inclined to do, especially to get rid of your Rillaboom's terrain, that can be a problem as well. So it can be threatening in the right circumstances, but sometimes not. Chandelure also very big attack stat, special attack stat. I think Riolu, especially with your physical attackers, makes them a little bit more threatening than normal. So I do kind of like that combined with stuff like Rillaboom and Golurk. The only reason we didn't grade you higher on your threat level is because it doesn't look like there's quite as much sweeping potential with this team as we see with a lot of other drafts. There's definitely ways to shut down your big threats, like I described with Milotic and Rillaboom. And then as we get into the kind of the tail end of your draft, the threat level drops off a little bit more for more obvious reasons. The Boltund, it does have access to competitive now with the Isle of Armor, but its base attack and special attack, I believe, are about 90. So its damage output is not going to be amazing, especially if your opponent is able to play around it and prevent the competitive boost. So you do have some threats. We can see you doing a lot of damage, a lot of good stuff with the threats that you have, but there are some significant limitations as well. For your draft grade, we also gave you a B-. We really loved the beginning of your draft. I think picking Togekiss first, like, you can make a really strong case that if you are first in the draft, Togekiss is just objectively the correct choice to make. There are some other Pokemon that you can also kind of make that case for, but there's not very many, and I think Togekiss comes out on top in many of those situations. So being first in the draft, I very much like that Togekiss pick. After that, you got a very strong Firewater Grass core. There are a couple of really strong ones in the league, particularly the ones that doesn't click and the New England Patrats have. I think I would count those two among the best. I think yours with Rillaboom, Milotic, and Chandelure is really not far behind. They're very powerful Pokemon. I can see them working well together. I even thought the Ghost typing on Chandelure was a little bit out of place at first, but I really like it paired with Togekiss to redirect Dark type attacks away. So I like that core a lot, especially paired with Togekiss. After that was where we felt like your draft kind of dropped off. So you had a really strong start, but you ended up spending a lot of points on those higher tier Pokemon. So you had to move down to you only got two B tier picks and one C tier. The Riolu, I sort of like it. It'll be good next to Rillaboom, and I do like that you picked another physical attacker right afterward. But I think I would have liked to see maybe one or two more physical attackers on this team. Boltund can be a physical attacker. It does have strong jaw. It can put out a decent amount of damage with that, and it is pretty fast. But again, its offenses are sort of limited, and sometimes you want to run a special variant with competitive instead. So overall, we decided to give you a B- because your draft started out very strong, but even though you have some good pieces that can do some good stuff even after round 4, it sort of fell off a little bit, largely because you spent so many points in the beginning and ended up with a more top heavy kind of draft.
And your overall team grade, because of that, we ended up giving you a B-. It was a little bit tough for us to do that because we liked the first 5 picks a lot, honestly. But we just felt that after that, I don't want to say fall apart. Fall apart is a little bit of a harsh term, especially because we did see some drafts truly fall apart at the end. So I don't think that was you guys so much. I think it was more just trying to get the most value out of the small amount of points that you guys had after picking 2 S tiers and 2 A tiers in the first 4 rounds. And because of that, sometimes it will make you make picks that normally maybe you wouldn't have to make because they're filling in roles that maybe should have been filled in by something in a higher tier. So for instance, like Go Lurk being your Trick Room Sweeper, had you went up and maybe grabbed like an A tier that was in there instead of grabbing like an S, you could have got a much better Trick Room Sweeper with a much lower speed stat and just something that you don't have to really set up very much. Although I do think Go Lurk is very good in this situation because of the area that you were in. It just showed a little bit that because the draft was so top heavy, you had to go for suboptimal options in order to fill out some of the roles that you might normally have to fill out with something that you want to fill out with a higher tier. So we gave you a B-, but we liked the draft overall. Like, we really did. We liked going with the objectively best first pick in Togekiss, grabbing another top 10 mon in G-Max Rillaboom, and being able to get that 23 picks later, having to go all the way forward and snaking back to you, and then still being able to grab a top 10 in G-Max Rillaboom, and then also pair that with a great water type and Milotic. It made it very, very difficult for us to give you that B- because of how much we like the top of this draft. But in Draft League, you have to take the whole 1 through 10 into consideration, and you have to grade them all along that. So that's why we gave you that B-.
Going into the pros, first one we listed was that your top 4 picks were very good. I talked about this in your draft order analysis. Great Firewater Grass cores. It's one of the best that we've seen, and paired with Togekiss, it's inevitably going to be very powerful. We also noticed that you got 2 very strong, very desirable S tier picks. If somebody had told me before the draft started that Togekiss and G-Max Rillaboom were going to end up on the same draft, I would have been absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find that G-Max Rillaboom was actually still there when it got back to you. You guys were first overall in the draft, and so it was there were 26 Pokemon that got picked in between your first and your second pick, and one of those 26, I believe, was regular Rillaboom. I think got picked in the second round. I may be wrong on that, but I think it's the fact that you guys got the G-Max form, I think, is even better, even though it can't reset its own terrain, and your opponents could potentially override terrain with their own abilities or max moves. Generally speaking, I think the G-Max form is actually stronger than the regular one, especially because it'll end up going through abilities with that G-Max drum solo, and it's the base 160 base power is so strong, so I think both of those together, I'm shocked that they ended up on the same draft. So it's great to see that you guys have those 2 together, and then Togekiss, of course, out of all of the redirectors in the draft, it is by far the most versatile. It's probably, out of all of the Pokemon that have access to Follow Me, it is probably the strongest overall. I think female Indeedee is probably a better redirector in general, but out of all of the Pokemon that have access to redirection, Togekiss is just the best overall Pokemon.
Yes.
And so any draft that has access to Togekiss is an amazing draft. It's it at least has the potential to be an amazing draft, and I think you guys have a lot of power with that Togekiss. I'm playing in another doubles league right now. I was the first to pick in my league, and I picked Togekiss as well. So I really agree with that pick. It can do a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. So some of the cons that we have here, just to go over real quick, we kind of already hit on this. You had a very top-heavy draft. It's going to happen when you go 2 S's, 2 A's in the first 4 picks. The fact that you made the most out of those really speaks a lot. And the fact that you guys were able to fill in those spots pretty decently, where you guys really didn't have those points show a lot. But the fact of the matter remains that the draft was very top-heavy. And one of the things that we looked at too was you really are missing a powerful Trick Room like mode. So even though Golurk has a low speed stat, having him as almost as your sole Trick Room sweeper can be very easy to predict. It's something that we talked about with the New England Patriots. They have a Trick Room mode, which is actually very good. They have Runerigus plus Copperajah, and typically last year what they were doing was Bulldoze Weakness Policy into the Copperajah and just sweeping with that. But having only one Pokemon to be able to sweep in Trick Room in general, especially when there are a decent amount of teams that have good Trick Room modes on them that they can use, can be something that we notice will lose you games, because in those first 5 turns, there's so much offense coming out and you're not able to put anything out. You're just constantly trying to pivot out to kind of stall out the turns because you're not able to put the offense you would normally want on the field. And the other con is that a lot of the Pokemon that you have outside of Togekiss are very easy to prepare for and really lack versatility. The G-Max Rillaboom, it does have a decent move pool, but one of the issues is that 2 moves that are for sure going on there, and one of them is Grassy Glide and the other one is Fake Out. So once you kind of figure out what the other coverage moves are going to be, you right away can go, okay, we understand what we're dealing with here, because there's no way, if you use U-Turn and then come back and use Superpower, it goes, okay, well now we know they're set. They're Fake Out, Grassy Glide, U-Turn, Superpower, because most of the time you're not going to want to have those 2 not on the set. While Rillaboom has a decent move pool, it kind of suffers from wanting those first 2 moves on there so much that it can be easy to prepare for. Milotic, sort of similar. It doesn't really have that great of a move pool to where you're getting water moves, you're getting ice moves out of it. You have the Coil Hypnosis stuff that Matt kind of hit on. So there's just, outside of that Togekiss, to where you can do so many things with it, either set it up offensively or defensively, we just felt that many of the Pokemon that you guys had drafted really didn't have a lot of versatility outside of what they're really strong at, and that makes it very easy to prepare for in Draft League. So did you want to go ahead and ask them a couple of questions here? We could start off. Matt, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. So we were kind of wondering about your overall draft plan. Obviously, you were able to plan out your first pick with no obstacles. Since you were first overall in the league, you picked Togekiss, which again I think is great. So can you tell us a little bit about what you were planning beyond Togekiss? Were you surprised that Rillaboom was still available when it got back to you at the end of the second round? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, once we found out that we were first picked, we chose we looked at the options we had on our spreadsheet that we'd been keeping, and we were like, well, Togekiss is the obvious answer here. We were debating between Togekiss and Whimsicott, and we were like, well, now that we're first picked, Togekiss is the obvious answer. And so when it came around the second time, we weren't expecting Rillaboom to be open. So we had other plans for grass types and fire types. We were going to switch our Chandelure Rillaboom in terms of positioning. And so when we saw Rillaboom was open, we were like, well, we have to take it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a strong option. You definitely want it there, and it fills out that fire, water, grass core nicely. So this one is a question that I thought needs to be answered. The last 3 picks, even though they look like filler picks, a lot of the times very good players know some of the hidden tricks that some of these lower tier Pokemon can do and actually utilize them. So I just want to ask, the Mawile, the Rhyhorn, and the Milcery, were those just filler picks to kind of fill out your already top-heavy draft, or do you have legitimate plans for them?
So we have actually some plans for them. For example, the Milcery have the ability to cancel out Among Us Spore, so we have the possibility to counter things like Spore or Hypnosis. Also, the Rhyhorn have Lightning Rod, so we have two pokes which are weak to electric types, like Togekiss and Milotic, for example. So we have Rhyhorn to get those electric moves out of the way. And they are all also pretty slow, so they can work in Trick Move too, I would say.
And Milcery also has I believe it has both Sweet Veil and Aroma Veil, so it can also you can also block stuff like Taunt and Encore if you decide to go with the Aroma Veil instead. So depending on and that's sorry, go ahead.
I was rooting for Milcery because I actually run Alchemy on my VGC team, so I knew its its abilities, and I was like, that's really good for the draft where we have somebody who look like they're going to use Hypnosis or Taunt to try and to work against the team.
Yeah, exactly. You can choose which one you need based on the kind of draft that you're facing. So I like that. And if you we know that you were first overall, so you got Togekiss with no problem. But before the draft order was released, what other kinds of plans did you guys have? I know, Shannon, you mentioned Whimsicott. What was that your number one plan B? Did you have any other plans other than that? Maybe some other different picks that may have followed from Whimsicott?
So we always had Whimsicott, well, before we knew we were first place, we were pretty sure that Togekiss was going to be the first pick. So we got rid of Togekiss pretty early until we found out we were first. And we were like, well, Whimsicott is the best in terms of Tailwind and that Prankster ability. And then we were also looking at like different sweepers. And so we were like, originally it was going to be Whimsicott with a Charizard, so that we could get a Sun team up, or Incineroar for the fake out Intimidator.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That would have been a really good core too. Did we have a team last year, Matt, that was also running Whimsicott Charizard, or was that a Cottony Charizard team?
I remember Foster and Devin had the Charizard, but I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they had. No, they didn't have Cottony or Whimsicott. No.
But either way, it's a very strong combination. So it's clear that you guys were very prepared, and you guys, no matter what, we're gonna get a very threatening Fire, Water, Grass core onto the team. You guys definitely succeeded getting that Fire, Water, Grass core on there and getting a successful one at that, and then pairing it with what we said is the best Pokemon that has Follow Me in the draft with Togekiss. Okay, so this gives you guys the opportunity to critique us on maybe some of our analysis that we might have had, or if you wanted to clear anything up that maybe might have been misconstrued or misrepresented that maybe you want to speak up for now. Right now would be the time to do it.
I'm going to speak up on behalf of Golurk. Because I run it pretty regularly, because I have in past run a Ghost Mana type team.
Oh, okay.
So I use it as a kind of filler, both with Iron Fist and No Guard. It fits both of those roles as kind of a Conkeldurr light in terms of work against dark types as well as ice types, because ghosts tend to be pretty squishy. So I was I really want this one. It's good for the tier it's in, It works in both as a trick room option, or you can give it more. You can make it into more of a Conkeldur's build recently. And give it that life orb.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how about you, Fry? Did you have any critiques for us with our analysis, or anything you want to push back on?
I would say you mean that we have not a lot of options, versatile options for the other mons, and I would disagree because, for example, Boltund, you can play him special or physical, so you will never know if I play him, for example, physically or special, so you can never know if I play it competitive or not, and you will always guess if you should put this Intimidate mon in or not.
It's very true. It could lose you a game thinking that it's physical, and then you switch it in, and then you get a boost, and now all of a sudden that Boltund that wasn't doing a lot of damage is now doing a lot of damage. That makes a lot of sense.
And then if you're too afraid to intimidate it, and it turns out to be the physical strong jaw variant, it could run away with the game doing too much damage, and you can't do anything about it. Especially if you put that Riolu next to it and start going for coaching.
Yes, yeah. So definitely can't. You're right. A couple of your guys' lower picks probably have more versatility than meets the eye, especially when it comes to us. So it's something that we found while we're critiquing these drafts, especially when it comes to the lower tiers. Some of these players, like Shannon was saying, it's like, hey man, I use Golurk. You know, I know that a lot of VGC players might not, but I do, and I know what it can do. And we've seen a lot of that. People really latching on to certain Pokemon and going, no, I know that this can be a threat. I know that supported correctly, we can make this a threat, and even though it might be overlooked, we can do some work with it. So, and
your familiarity with a Pokemon like that actually adds to its strength as well.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Do you guys have any other questions for us, or any other critiques or anything like that?
Any final thoughts?
I don't have anything, I would say.
I want to ask one final question.
Thanks.
If you guys, you have a couple of things you said?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I just wanted to ask just a real general question. I believe, is this your guys' first year in this draft? Or in this league?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I would just like to know what your guys' goals are for this league. Playoffs. We have 10 weeks, or 9 total weeks, 10 weeks with the bye. What are you guys hoping your record will be this regular season?
I don't know. I'm really like pretty new to competitive Pokemon, so I'm just happy to be here at this moment.
Yeah, we mostly want to have some fun. I would say.
Well, you guys have a fun-looking team.
We have no high expectations to reach, I would say. So, but we are going to do our best, for sure.
Good.
For new players, I think you actually you ended up drafting really well.
Yes.
Especially with the top part. The first 4 picks I think are going to work really well together. They're very powerful. So, I think you guys did a good job.
Yeah, you guys are going to get more wins than you think for sure. You guys got a good squad.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys. Well, that wraps us up for you guys. We are going to be talking to, let me see, I always lose my place here.
Should be LA New Wave next.
LA New Wave, yeah. We're going to be talking to the LA New Wave next, so stick around. And thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
You too. Thank you too.